I like that one.
So
I'm
here's
gonna use that.
how's everything going, by the way? Like with just that your awareness and your own personal challenges. Good. Okay. You notice the interesting thing that I heard somebody today. They said something to me that really struck me, and I said, "Well, how's it going?" And she goes, "I'm just taking it one day at a time." And I thought about that. Like, doesn't everybody else take it one day at a time, right? Like, I mean, did she used to take it like a week at a time, and now she's only taking it a day at a time? You know what I mean? And so one of the things that happens is that we can, like, a lot of times we think that, we get overwhelmed and we just got to take this little bit at just one little day at a time. That's how we have to live life. Because you can't take it any faster and you can't take it any slower. You just got to be present in the moment there. And so what I want to show you, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but just kind of watch this for me. And I want you to tell me what you see when you see this. All right, what do you see? Just circles, right? And so a lot of times what we see is not necessarily what's there. We see these things going around in a circle, but it's actually not balls going around in a circle. It's just balls going around in a straight line. And so what we start to see, as we have more information, we get greater clarity. We get greater understanding about the world that's around us there. And so what seemed to be this just like very superficial thing, every single time you come to one of these, what you start to do is you start to understand at a deeper level, a greater level of understanding, where what you start to see is it's essential number one, moving back and forth, and essential number two. But what you also have to realize is that there's perfect timing for that circle to occur. Without timing, they collide into each other. And that's why this is a process. It's something that happens on a consistent basis. So when we talk about, I'm going to do it all at once, sometimes if you do it all at once, everything's going to crash. And so your life there's a process to it. But we talked about it's also a routine. And then the problem, when we start seeing our life crashing into each other, the problem's in the pattern. The problem's in the pattern of our life. So when we start to actually realize that there is a pattern, if we start crashing into ourselves there, we just need to look at the pattern of our lives, taking it one single day at a time, but also taking one step at a time. So what I want you to, other thing that I need you to understand is it's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. Like, sitting here looking at this food, it's all about perspective, because most of us would, we look at the food and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Not just because it tastes good, because we know what it's doing on the inside of ourselves. And so at the makeover, one of the things that a lot of people are telling me, they're like, this has just totally changed how I see things, right? And so we all know that the sun rises in the where? East, and it sets in the west. Right. Does anybody disagree with that? Joel, do you disagree with that? Like, every single person knows the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. That's a fact. And so we go through our life looking at all these small little facts. And that's a lot of times we'll go to the Oprah and we'll look at what like Oprah's saying today, and then tomorrow Dr. Oz is saying, hey, take this herb to be healthy. And then the next day you see in the newspaper, you should try this there. And then you see here's something on the newspaper. These are all facts. There's all this research that's backing it up. Just like the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But when we take a step back, when we actually get perspective, what we realize is the sun doesn't rise in the east and set in the west. That the earth actually rotates around the sun. And so when you're able to take a step back and see things in proper perspective, and that's what I want you to understand about this process that you're going through, it's not about weight loss, okay? Because you can get caught up in the rules. You can get caught up in the east and west. You can get caught up, I need to surge this much today, and I need to have this many calories or proteins. What we're talking about right now is it's about a lifestyle. It's about a way that we live our life. And so here's one of the things that will happen is people will say, oh my gosh, I'm just not, I gained weight in this process. And then other people will be like, I lost a whole bunch of weight. And then other people will be like, I'm just the same. And so one of the things that we have to look at is get perspective on what we're trying to achieve here. It's about losing to win. Like, we need to lose those patterns that are destructive to us. We need to lose those things that have been holding us back. Every single person has come up with come up against some devil, right? We know that there's a devil at every level that we're going to have to combat. So every person's come up with something in this process, whether it's time, whether it's boredom, Whether it's, trying to get the right foods in, trying to get enough food, trying to get too little food, trying to overcome this weight thing, trying to let go of this weight thing, trying to exercise. And so that's what this is about for us, is making sure that we're losing something so that we can actually win. So, and I love this because when we put this lose to win here, very few things on here that people put on there in this process. The reason why they went to the makeover, very few people actually put things about losing weight, right? But they wanted to lose with bad habits. Somebody put weight here. Somebody wanted to lose their sugar cravings there. Somebody put 50 pounds, but somebody also put, binging. Somebody put that I want to just give up. I want to lose, like, being so focused on weight, right? And so when we also look at what we're trying to do right here is what are we committed to? We want to dance. Somebody else wants to be able to run a marathon. Somebody else wants to sleep. So what we find is that it's this process that we're going through. And that's why Recipe Night's so cool for me, because this is our time to get together as a family, come together, break bread, and also be able to share with everybody else's joys and their triumphs, but also their weaknesses there. And that's where a family becomes really important, is supporting other people. So when you're out there and you're seeing somebody having a hard time and they want to give up, cheer them on, give them a high five. When you're sitting in the reception area and you see somebody that's in there, ask them how it's going. If they're having a hard time, cheer them on there. And it does. What we find is that when we're in a service to somebody else, that's where we get our greatest benefit. So I think the biggest thing that I run into in this process is how we talk to ourselves, right? And the thing is that you have to understand why you're doing this, right? And that's the biggest thing. It's that big why. Why are we doing this? Why are we actually going through this process? And really, like, what you're really working to sacrifice to achieve what you're in this process. And I really like the word sacrifice, because a lot of times we think, I don't want to sacrifice anything. But what happens is that sacrifice is literally giving up something to become better. It's about growing in that process. When we sacrifice, we have to kill something so that we can go on to something different. And so that's this big thing, is we got to figure out what we're trying to sacrifice here. And this is what I want to show you. So this is somebody that's on the plan that we talked about. Okay, her husband was a San Diego Charger. He had a traumatic head injury, obviously, like most football players have. But he actually brought his wife in, and what she wanted she was having dementia. She was overweight. She was about 50 pounds overweight. She had diabetes. She had all these other health issues there. But he was slowly losing his wife. And so what he did is he implemented the same plan that you guys did. And what I want you to see, and this is what's called a PET scan. And what a PET scan looks at is the areas of the brain that are actually active. So this is her before picture. And it looks like Swiss cheese, doesn't it? So 10 weeks later, this is what her brain looks like. And the only thing that she did was implemented the plan that I gave to you. So let me ask you a question. What if you gained 2 pounds in this process and your brain went from like this to like this? Right?
Awesome.
Yeah, right? Like how do you know? And the only thing that you know is if you're doing the right thing. And if you do the right thing on a consistent basis, you're going to get right results every single time. It's a law. So when you start looking at getting caught up in the scale, start looking at what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve staying healthy. And one of the things about staying healthy is doing right things. Don't get caught up in what we call scale psychosis. All right. So the other thing that I want you to talk about is this is a lifestyle change, okay? So what happens after 30 days?
Keep doing it.
Another 30 days, right? And then another 30 days, and then another 30 weeks, and then another 30 months, and then another 30 years, and then we have 30 of our family members doing it, and then we have 60 of our, you know what I mean? That's how we make a difference, and it starts with us. I was talking to, listening to our pastor a little while ago, and what he said to me is he said something that I thought was really profound. He said, let's say the second coming was going to happen in 10 years from now. And you were going to go out there and try to save souls, right? How would you go about doing that? If you know that everybody's gonna be left behind if they didn't know, would you just kind of be like, hey, I go to church on Sunday, kind of do my thing, or would you have a different intensity about how you go about doing things? And I think that what happens is that we start to lose our edge over time. We start to get comfortable and we start to be like, hey, I'm doing pretty good. But remember we talked about the 5 levels of the tribe. The first level is that I suck and everybody else sucks, right? And then we have the level 2 is that maybe everybody else doesn't suck, but I still suck. And then level 3 is I'm great and everybody else sucks. And that's where a lot of us find each other. Those are the irritating people, right? Like, they think that they're doing so great and they talk down to other people. But level 4 is that I'm doing pretty good. And you guys are actually can be good too. And then level 5 is that I'm doing amazing and I need to bring all of you with me and together we're going to go change the world. And so that's what this is about, is that it's 30 days to changing the world. Because why can't changing the world start right here in Santa Clara? Why can't it start right here? I just watched the thing on Selma last night at the Oscars, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what was interesting, it started with one man. We don't even know if it was Martin Luther King, but somebody inspired him to be able to do something, and because together it all started, it took time, right? And it's going to take longer than you think, I promise you. Like, you can't undo 40 years of bad habits in 30 days, right? So it's going to take longer than you think. Stop thinking that it's a 30-day challenge, that I'm going to lose all the weight and get it back, undo all the bad decisions, all the bad problems that I've ever done in my whole life. Just know that it's going to take longer than you think. So, did I miss one? Yeah, so don't make the scale make you psycho, okay? I almost debated whether I was going to actually put a scale in this one. And the reason being is that on a daily basis, people are looking at it. But here's the thing, is that the question you got to ask yourself, are your clothes a little looser, right? Are you feeling better? Do you feel stronger? Like, those are the things that we need to look at there. And the biggest problem is that when we think the reward for exercise and eating right is actually losing weight. That's not necessarily the reward for it. It's actually being healthier there. And so just remember, this is a process. It's not a project. A project has a dead due date. Like, there is no due date on this. This is a process that we're working through there. Dig in for the long haul. And I think that the long haul is the hardest one for most of us to kind of think about, right? We just, like most of us can't even think about what we're doing next week, much less next month. And so, like I talked about, you didn't get where you are overnight. So it's gonna take time, but as long as you do right things on a repetitive basis over time, you're gonna get right results every single time. Next one, I was gonna just talk about the scale again. So I just need to remind you that a lot of times people have questions. And do you guys remember the 3 hormones that we talked about? We talked about insulin, leptin, and ghrelin. All right. So insulin, basically what I need to do, the biggest problem that we find in weight loss resistance is one single thing. It is leptin resistance. It's not the insulin, because if you're doing the kickstart, your insulin levels are going to be better. If you're doing if you're just on the advanced plan, your insulin levels are going to be better there. The biggest challenge that we run into is the resistance to the leptin. And what happens is that leptin levels are going to be, remember, leptin, when you have high levels, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to turn off your fat burning. Well, the only reason why leptin levels stay high is for 2 reasons. Number one, you have a lot of extra sugar there. And then what happens is that for a long time, your body's been screaming out, hey, I have extra, burn. Well, what happens is the receptors become actually resistant. The other thing is toxins. Toxins at this point, when somebody hits a level at this point, most times, like when they hit a plateau, most times it's going to be a toxicity issue. Because what happens is that the toxins will actually bind to the receptors on the cellular membrane. Leptin can't get in there, and basically your body can't hear to turn on the fat burning, okay? And that's a big issue. So really check in, not only with your personal care products, your home care products, changing those things over. A lot of times we find that, we have medications that are issues there. All these different things will compound into our bodies there. And so if we're hitting a plateau, it is definitely a toxicity issue for the most part. If you're already, here's the thing though, I do talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I'm on the advanced plan, did the 15-day Kickstart challenge, but I actually substituted this shake and I really like to have a little extra sugar and I've been having like a muffin here, and I'm like, you're either on or you're not. So like you can't like round out. Like I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said, I gave up alcohol for Lent. And they came to a crab feed that I was at the other day. And they said, but tonight I decided I'm just not going to drink at home. Like, this is the same person that last year they did the same thing and they said, I'm just not going to drink in front of my kids. You know what I mean? Like you can't like bend the rules. The rules are the rules. Like just stick with the rules there. So we're going to just know that if we are hitting a plateau, talk to me, it's definitely a leptin resistance issue. This is the biggest one that most people neglect, is sleep. Sleep is one of the greatest predictors for obesity, okay? Just because like you think that you don't have to sleep, your body needs to sleep. That's where your body releases growth hormone, which is the thing that burns fat. That's the thing where all of your brain cells and your tissues and your neurotransmitters are regenerated. Like sleep is when, if you have decreased sleep, the ghrelin, the thing that stimulates hunger, actually is increased. So have you ever noticed that there's that point at night, like all of a sudden 10 o'clock, and then you're reading the fridge, right? And you just keep eating and eating and eating, and you just can't stop. Well, that's that point. Once you get like a deficiency in sleep, you're just going to be hungry. And then you wake up in the next morning, if you're sleep deficient, you're going to be like going to the fridge, and you're like famished the moment that you wake up in the morning, like you're going down there. So just look at that. If you're having like hunger issues, you're probably not getting enough sleep there. All right, next one. This day will never happen again. Like how many of us like have used that tag before, right? Okay, today it's never going to happen again. We'll sign it and date it, and then tomorrow is the same thing. So one of the things that most people don't think about is my dad used to always say, if you hang around slippery people in slippery places, you're going to slip, right? So just stay away from slippery people and slippery places, you won't slip. So one of the things that we really look at is looking at not when you let's say you all of a sudden break down and you go eat like 4 pizzas or something like that, but look at what led up to it. And even get to the point as if you're starting to think about that you're hungry and that you want to break down, like look at the thought process that is happening while that's hitting you. So if you're like, I just don't want to do this anymore, right? I'm just done with this. I just want to go back to the way I was. Like look at what was happening before you got to that place. Like, is it a frustration? Is it about the weight? Is it about like you just want freedom? Because that's one of the greatest things that we want as human beings is freedom to be able to make our own decisions. Like you look at a teenager, like that's the biggest thing that they want is freedom. And the worst thing you can do to a teenager is take away their freedom. And we're just big teenagers. I have gray hair now, but I'm still a teenager. Like my brain thinks that way. And so when I tell you you can't do something, then you're going to get frustrated. And you're going to think, oh my gosh, well, if I can't, then I must, right? So, look at the things that, would break you down. Like you walk into the office and then there's, there's donuts there. Like what's your habit right there? Or usually what happens when people break down, all of a sudden I had to go to lunch. And I had to have a business lunch, right? So like have your plan in place. And usually what we find is that it's other people and other situations, people controlling your situation, that's going to mess you up there. Oops. This is my favorite one. A little bit of crap leads to a lot of crap. Okay, like you basically where it's like you look at that, it's like a priming pump. Has anybody ever eaten one French fry and they're like, I'm good? You know what I mean? Like if you're driving in the car, one French fry, you're like, I just need one French fry. No, it's like you know what it's going to taste like. I mean, we talked about like the box of See's candies. Like you know the things that are going to stimulate you to do things. So just avoid those things there. And look at your trigger foods. Like if you were to say chocolate to me, I'd be like, whatever. Like chocolate has 0 power on it. But if you were to say like a French fry to me, like a really big, salty, like I'd be like, I'd be walking like that. This is a big one, and we talked about this at the makeover that it's hard to start and it's hard to finish, right? But it's in between the flow that's the easiest part. Like once you're in the flow with something, once you're in the groove and in the zone, like it's hard to start surge, but like how many of you guys have ever quit surge in the middle of surge? No, right? Like, and maybe it's hard to finish it, but you push through there. And so this is a big thing, is be hard on yourself at first. Like you wake up in the morning, start your morning off right. Have a plan in the morning. Be hard on yourself at first, because then you have your momentum going on there. Like if you're having a challenge in the morning, get your shakeout, get everything ready to go, get all your foods that you're going to have, know what you're going to eat for breakfast. And then what happens is that now you can be hard on yourself, but it's not, being hard on yourself has nothing to do with beating yourself up, okay? Like nobody needs to like beat you up. And I think that the biggest challenge is a lot of times, like we are so hard on ourselves, right? We're nicer to people that are, that like we're constantly seeking love from people that, and trying to love people that don't love us, right? And we're trying to be nice to people that aren't nice to us. And we're also horrible to ourselves, who we should be loving. And so we put all this energy into something that doesn't give us any return. And I put on that weekly wellness wisdom the other day. The most valuable real estate in the entire world is where? Yeah, right in your head, right? Like you can't. It's more expensive than Newport. Like there's no other place that is more valuable than the real estate that's right here in your head. And so if you're hard on yourself, all that is doing is just basically taking garbage and turning your real estate into a garbage dump there. So be nice to yourself there. This is my favorite one. So every single time that I've tried to put my exercise off, I basically don't end up doing it. And so what ends up happening is we find that if we just get our exercise done at the beginning of the day, if we get our, we schedule that we're going to exercise 5 times a week, and maybe something will come up, at least we'll have at least one extra day there for us. And so just make sure that, there's basically you have to schedule, don't schedule your days off, schedule all of your days on. And just stay on and get it done. Because my grandfather used to always say, you do the hard things first and the easy things get easier. So if you just go out and you just get all your exercise done at the beginning of the week, then you're good to go. But I promise you, if you're, at the end of the week, you're probably going to just keep exercising because you were already there. This is a huge one. It's not about your willpower, but about the systems. And so, when somebody starts on a process, right, they get so excited. They're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to go grab everything. And I got this meal plan. I'm going to be doing this. And they put all their energy into doing, but they don't put any of their energy into the systems that create sustainable doing for them. So I would rather have you start slow and actually create systems that are consistent for yourself. Looking at where you go shopping, understanding your labels, understanding why you do certain things. Maybe even reading the books and understanding when you're going to go shopping and how you're going to get your foods to work, and how you're going to, when you go out to lunch with somebody, how you're going to actually, what you're going to actually eat there. It's not about the willpower, because willpower eventually breaks. Systems don't. And so if you create an indestructible system, you're going to be indestructible in this process there. So planning's everything. Basically, that's what it is. Like if you don't know what you're going to eat tomorrow, basically it's going to either be the same thing that you ate today, and then you're going to get really bored of it, and then you're going to quit. Or what happens is that you're going to break. You know what I mean? And so like having your meal plan at the beginning of the week, finding out like what your family likes and what they don't like, but really having your planning of your shopping in place, when you're going to eat, where you're going to eat, how you're going to eat, when you're going to have your days off. Where you're going to go hang out with, what your family's going to do. And the last thing I wanted to show you, and these are just some interesting things that just came up. And we talk about the 5 essentials as being essential. And sometimes and I'm going to go over an article with you in a second, but sometimes there's things that just come out and they hit me right between the eyes. And so one of the things that I looked at, we talk about the nervous system. What the heck does an adjustment have to do with anything, right? And so in this study that just came out a couple years ago, they found that successful weight loss weight losers, basically they found that the significant contribution of their nervous system activity was in charge of their dietary success. So what they found was that when you have 2 parts of your nervous system, the autonomic and the parasympathetic, the sympathetic and parasympathetic. When there's a balance between those 2 systems, what happens is that you're much more likely to be successful. When you're under stress and your body's locked into a pattern, you're going to be craving the carbs. You're going to be making short-term decisions. But what they found is that when there's a balance between the autonomic and the autonomic nervous system, you're going to be much more likely to be successful. That's why when somebody's like, well, I just want to do this max mind thing, and I want to work on my nutrition, I want to exercise, and I want to remove toxins, I'm like, there's 5 essentials, not 4, right? Because it's all about success. And then we start looking at, this was another one, that the autonomic nervous system activity and weight gain and weight loss. Basically, they found that the hypothesis actually, when somebody is stuck into a stress state in their nervous system, it prevents them from losing weight. It prevents them from losing weight, and that's why what's really interesting is I've had people that start under care and they're like, I just don't understand why I'm losing weight. I'm like, well, I know you haven't done essential number 4, and I haven't done essential number 3, and you haven't done toxicity, and you're still kind of a stress bag. But you can actually see them losing weight right off the bat. And it's only because there's a law of the universe that when your body is functioning the way that God intended it to, it's going to work right, and it's going to regulate itself every single time. Weight loss hormone basically, weight loss hormones activate brain pathways that instruct the body to burn fat. They're talking about leptin there. So the nervous system is what controls leptin. And what's cool about this is they found that when there's that basically it burns the good, it creates thermogenesis, which actually is the fat burning process there. And so when you have an imbalance in your nervous system, like it's gonna actually have an impact there. So look at this. So when we do our scans on you, right? When we do the surface EMG scans and the thermography scans, you're like, oh, those are pretty colors. Actually, I'm actually looking at the balance of your nervous system. I'm looking at the balance. The one that's always on the left is a balance, is what we call autonomic balance. It's looking at the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic part of your nervous system. That's a greater determiner of actually somebody's long-term health, how well your body is able to adapt, than pretty much your cholesterol or your weight or anything like that. Because when you can't adapt, then you die. So the more that your body can adapt, the better, the longer you're going to live. And the best part about that is that you have a better quality of life. You can adapt to your environment. So that's what we look at when we're looking at that. That's why when somebody comes in to get checked, that's the first thing that I do. I don't even take an x-ray, then do that. I actually will look at somebody's scan first to see the balance of their nervous system. And if there is any imbalance there, then I'll take a picture there. But what I want to show you is this. And I don't know if this is too much, but I don't really care because I have you guys trapped. So I'm kind of a geek when it comes to information. And I'm not going to read the whole article to you because it's a long article. But Scientific American is really one of those magazines that it's at the largest circulated scientific journal that's out there. Okay? For something to get in here is pretty solid. And so I get my subscription today, and I look at that, and I said, brain, nervous system, interesting. And so I open it up, and what they talk about is that they have this new type of medicine they're looking at called shock medicine. And what they said was this, and I thought this was interesting. They said, everything in our body, touch, taste, pressure, the nervous system senses it, right? And then what it does is it fires a part of your nervous system called a motor neuron, and that actually signals the brain's muscles and organs to trigger behaviors that allow you to either run from a tiger or to pull your hand away from like a hot stove. Makes sense. We all know that. That's common sense to us. Just so you know, that's not common sense to most people out there. Like most people don't talk about their nervous system or even think about their nervous system. This thing about the nervous system controlling the function of your entire body, this is a new thought. It's only been there for 150 something years. So the guy that came up with the idea that your nervous system controls your body, he actually got the Nobel Prize for it 150 years ago. So this isn't a new thought there. But what they said, and what he got his Nobel Prize for, is he said that you have millions of nerve signals that control the function of your body, and they control the function of the organs. And how do they do this? Your body actually produces drugs to control the organs. How interesting is that? Like, so we're like anti-drug? No, your body actually produces the drugs to do it. They said an electrical signal comes through the nerve, and it comes down to the nerve or the end organ, and it actually produces a transmitter or a drug that actually binds to the receptors. And what's really interesting is that the pharmaceutical industry is spending billions of dollars right now trying to figure out what was already figured out for you a millennia ago. And what they said, and this is where I'm going to take this to, but what they said is these drugs have dangerous side effects that they're trying to figure out how to put into your body. You know, once swallowed or injected, the pharmaceutical travels through the body, and they produce an undesired effect that interacts with the cells. And one of the side effects of that is lethal and death. It's about $30,000 a year per patient that's on these type of medications. You get it for free. Like, you were born with it. Like, you don't have to figure this out. So what they thought is, how can we change this? And they're like, okay, so they started testing the nervous system. And so they found that if they actually stimulated the nervous system, it actually produced all the medications that you need. And what they found is they said, well, how are we going to test this? Maybe it's just that when we inject it into the brain, it's the pituitary gland. So what they did is they took out the pituitary gland. Oh, it still got to it. And what they were looking for was something that's an inflammatory agent. So like, let's say you like hurt your knee and it was inflamed. What they could do is they would inject this thing into your brain, and actually what it would do is it would stop something called tissue necrosis factor, which is an inflammatory agent down in your knee. So if they injected it in the right part of the brain, it would go to your knee and you would have no inflammation there. And they said, well, it's probably like a pituitary thing. So they removed the pituitary and it still worked. And so what they ended up doing is they said, wow, that's amazing. So unfortunately, I feel bad for rats, but they ended up actually going and they said, well, what we'll do is we will actually cut the nerve. And what happened is no inflammation, no anti-inflammatory effect occurred in the nerve, in the knee when that happened. And they found that like as long as that nervous system was uninterfered with, that brain was able to communicate to wherever it needed to. What's really fascinating is this is new information. Right? This is like phenomenal information, and the problem is that their whole thought process was this. They said right at the end, hold on, they just got $248 billion grant because what ends up happening is they said that this is the cure for rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, and any other inflammatory process that we can even imagine. The cool thing is that their thought is that we find the nerves that have decreased information going through that, we put a neural stimulator on there to stimulate the nerve from transmitting it, just to transmit information. My feeling is this: you just take the pressure off the nerve and let the body know what it knows how to do every single time. Right? So when we take the pressure off the nerve, yeah, we don't need electrical cures because electricity is already in the body. We don't need to balance off the nervous system because it knows how to do it. We don't need to teach you how to lose weight because your body was already designed to lose weight as long as it's not interfered with. And that's the principle that we talk about. That's how we have to live our life. It's what we call the chiropractic lifestyle, that your body doesn't need any help. You don't need any help. You just don't need any interference. Anything and everything that you ever wanted in your entire life is already on the inside of you. All you got to do is let it out. And that's what this lose to win process is about. It's about remembering who you are and whose you are and what you're capable of. And if you're capable of producing something that scientists are spending $250 million to figure out, and your body's already figured it out from the day that you were born, you're pretty incredible. You're pretty amazing. And don't forget that. So when you look at that scale and you see that it hasn't budged, give yourself a pat on the back because you know you're regenerating your brain. Give yourself a pat on the back because you know when you do your home care and you're getting adjusted and you're laying on your rolls, that you're actually reducing inflammation and preventing inflammatory reactions such as heart disease and cancer and diabetes. So much of the time we don't realize the things that we're doing, and we need to give ourselves a pat on the back because you guys deserve it. Because you're actually not looking for right now, you're looking for 30 years from now. I just want to show you one last thing. This is what the nerve looks like. All they were talking about was the motor nerves, right? So there's 3 parts of your nerves. The sensory nerve is this small part right here, and all it looks, that's how we feel. So if we're basing our whole health on how we feel rather than how our body is functioning, we got major issues going on there. And unfortunately, that's why we take 80% of the drugs in the United States, in the world, and we're 5% of the world's population. Because we're a culture addicted to how we feel. And so don't be at how you feel. Look at where you're going and the direction that you're going, because you have to think about where you're going to be, how you're going to feel in 30 years from now. Last thing. Sometimes you get like a little thought process, and every single person here, I can emphatically say is a warrior. Okay?
Yeah.
I like every single person, like I know that if I was in a battle that you would have my back, and I would have your back. Like, and I want you to understand how valuable that is for me. But when we see people getting on an airplane, like if we start, like a lot of times people look at us like we're freaks, right? They think we're like a little bit crazy. Like, why do you put so much effort into like taking care of your health? Why don't you just come out and cut loose with us for a little bit, right? You know, let's just go out and have some beer and let's go have some French fry. I don't know if you ever saw that thing, Heart Attack. There's a place called Heart Attack Grill. And like there was a thing on the internet about the Heart Attack Grill. Look it up. There's basically a commercial on it. And basically this Heart Attack Grill, you walk in there and you put on a hospital scrub, like it's a hospital gown. And then they sit there, and the chef, like the cooks, they're wearing scrubs and a mask. And the doctor comes out, and if you weigh over 350 pounds, you get to eat there for free.
Oh.
Their spokesman was 529 pounds on the commercials, all the infomercials. He was 27 years old. He just died of a massive heart attack. But they're actually using that to market. That's normal. People are interested in that, right? So they look at us like we're like, I don't eat roasted nuts. I eat raw nuts. And they're like, oh, what's your problem, right? Like, what do you mean you exercise for 12 minutes? Like, why don't you get on the cardio? Like, what do you mean you're not like trying to take more drugs? You're trying to take less drugs. Like, people look at us like freaks. But I look at those people, and most of them think that they're going to Hawaii, right? And so, like, if you were talking to them, you're like, hey, don't get on that plane. Do not get on that plane. That's the wrong place. You know, don't get on that plane. They'd be like, you're a nut, right? Because they all think that this is where they're going. But what if that flight was United Airlines Flight 93, right? What if that flight was going there? And you saw that, you went back in time in the DeLorean from, Back to the Future, and you were sitting right there, and you saw United 93. You know exactly where that flight's going, right? You know that those people think they're going to Hawaii. They think they're leaving. Actually, they think they're leaving from Newark to go back to San Francisco to see their families and friends. But you know exactly where that's going. And we know that 2001, if we could go back there, they would change it. So how bad would we stop those people that were standing in line at that particular time? That's why I call you warriors, because we have to not just fight for our families. We got to fight for the people that don't know. We got to say something to people, and if they think that they're crazy, we just got to grab them out of line, right? And we got to keep telling them and telling them and telling them until they get it through, because we know that they're on a path to destruction there.